Nguyen Jade stared out the fogged bus window, watching the picturesque pine forests of Dalat blur past in soft green silhouettes. The late afternoon light tinted everything pale gold. She was 22, newly graduated from university, and had jumped at the chance to work in this famous mountain city. People said Dalat was a magical place. Vibrant flowers, mild weather, romantic nooks, yet also whispered with ghostly legends. Jade did not believe in such stories, or so she told herself. When the bus finally halted at a small station, Jade lugged her big backpack into the open air. The altitude gave a brisk chill to the breeze, so she zipped her jacket. After a few phone calls, she found a rickety taxi driver who whisked her away from the bustling center toward a quiet, half-hidden neighborhood. The roads twisted up and down, lined with old villas left behind from French colonial times and humble apartments with chipped paint. Some houses perched precariously on steep slopes, others nestled cozily amid pine stands. The taxi slowed before a narrow alley. "We're here," the driver announced. On one side, Jade saw a cluster of small homes, each with red-tiled roofs. The place she'd arranged to rent, after scanning online ads, was supposed to be at the alley's end. Jade thanked the driver, paid her fare, and stepped out onto damp cobblestones. The air smelled faintly of pine needles and earth. Walking into the alley, she noted how the overhead wires crisscrossed the sky. The neighborhood had a hush to it. Even though it was not yet evening, shadows crept quickly into Dalat's mountain gloom. Jade's pulse quickened with anticipation. This was her first real venture away from family. She would have a job in a local marketing firm, and a place to call her own. The building that matched the address was an old two-story house subdivided into smaller rental units. The paint on the front was peeling, and an ancient wrought iron gate squeaked as Jade pushed it open. Though somewhat dreary, the homey yard had a row of geranium pots, giving a hint of color. She spotted a sign reading room for rent, 3rd floor. The landlady, Ms. Thursday, appeared in the doorway. She was a petite woman, perhaps in her 50s, hair pinned up. She greeted Jade politely, then led her inside. The interior was dim, the walls hung with old paintings. Jade trod carefully on tile floors that glistened with leftover raindrops. "Your room is upstairs, dear," Miss Thursday said, voice echoing in the corridor. "This house is quiet. I don't host many tenants. Right now, only 2 other rooms are occupied, but their tenants are gone for a while." Jade nodded. Something about Ms. Thursday's voice was guarded, but Jade had no reason to worry. This was her new start, her independence. She followed Ms. Thursday up the narrow wooden staircase, which creaked with every step. By the time they reached the top floor, Jade was out of breath. The hallway smelled like old wood and chamomile. The door at the end was hers. Ms. Thursday fumbled with keys, unlocking it, and motioned Jade inside. It was a single room with a small window facing a slope of pine trees. A modest bed, a flimsy dresser, and a tiny kitchenette with a single burner stove. Jade tried a tentative smile. It was small, yes, but enough for her. She thanked Ms. Thursday, who handed over the keys with a polite, "If you need anything, let me know." Then the landlady scurried away. Left alone, Jade exhaled, taking in the hush. The single overhead bulb cast a dull light. Satisfied enough, Jade slid off her backpack. She decided to freshen up, have an early night, and explore tomorrow. She had no inkling that in the corners of her new home, something else might dwell, a presence that quietly watched. The evening turned chilly, and outside, a light drizzle began. Jade had rummaged through her bag, changed into comfortable sweatpants, and started to cook herself a quick meal, instant noodles. The sizzling pot on the single burner stove provided minimal warmth, and Jade shivered at how cold Dalat nights could be. A scuttling sound made her glance over her shoulder. Maybe a rat on the roof? She shrugged it off, stirring her noodles. People called Dalat the city of eternal spring, but nights could be downright frigid, especially in older houses with thin walls and no heating system. The gloom of the place made her slightly uneasy, though she refused to let it bother her. Jade valued her independence too fiercely to let a creaky house and a scuttle or two unnerve her. After dinner, Jade tried reading a paperback novel, but she felt uncharacteristically tired. The combination of the bus journey, the damp chill, and moving in had drained her. She turned off the overhead bulb, leaving only a small lamp by the bed. The quiet of the house settled in around her like a heavy blanket. Crawling under the covers, Jade was soon dozing off, lulled by the drizzle tapping the window. In that half-sleep state, she heard a faint giggle, like a child's laughter. The sound was so fleeting that her drowsy mind dismissed it as a trick of hearing. She dozed again, only to sense a faint presence, as if someone hovered near the bed. Heart pounding, she forced her eyes open. The room was empty, lit only by the feeble lamp glow. She told herself, "It's just your imagination." With an uneasy sigh, she rolled over and sank back into slumber. But the intangible feeling of not being alone persisted. The night wore on, deep and still, and in the corridor, floorboards sometimes creaked. Jade guessed it was Ms. Thursday or the other tenants. Eventually, she slept. Sunlight arrived late in Dalat. Peeking over the pine hills around 6:30 a.m., Jade woke stiff and chilled. She parted the thin curtains, revealing a sky suffused with pastel pink. A swirl of mist drifted among the trees. Remembering the odd sensations from the night, she pressed it aside. Dreams, no doubt. She hopped in the cramped bathroom shower, relishing some hot water. The pipes rattled ominously, but delivered a tolerable flow. Emerging, Jade dressed in jeans and a sweater, then decided to go find breakfast and maybe meet Miss Thursday about clarifying rental details. On the second floor landing, Jade paused. There were 4 doors, presumably for other boarders or perhaps Miss Thursday's personal space. One door was slightly ajar. By accident, Jade glimpsed inside. She saw a narrow bed, a child's blanket draped across it, complete with cartoonish patterns of teddy bears. Strange, why would a child's blanket be in a boarding house with mostly adult tenants? Hearing footsteps, Jade hurriedly moved along. She found Miss Thursday in the ground floor hallway. "Good morning," Jade greeted politely. She asked if any children lived here.
Who has Tita? No.
We had a family who used to rent, but they moved out last year. Perhaps they left some items behind. Don't worry about it. The landlady's dismissive tone was almost too quick, as if she wanted to bury the subject. Jade frowned, but let it go for now. She asked about the monthly schedule, cleaning arrangements, any quirks of the house. Ms. Thursday gave short, direct answers. Jade felt there was some unspoken tension. Nonetheless, with polite smiles, they parted ways. Outside, Jade ventured down the alley. The crisp morning air smelled of coffee from a nearby cafe. Over a steaming cup, she planned her day. She had orientation at her new job in 2 days, so she might as well get comfortable in the meantime, buy groceries, explore a bit. She didn't suspect the intangible gloom that lingered back in her rented room, waiting. That day passed uneventfully. Jade stocked her kitchenette with instant soup, vegetables, some fruit. She returned to the house around late afternoon, arms loaded with grocery bags. The corridor was dim, the overhead light turned off. Footsteps tapped above, likely Miss Thursday on some errand. Jade ascended to her 3rd floor room. When unlocking her door, Jade froze. Something outside the corner of her eye, movement along the corridor. She turned, glimpsing a small silhouette. A child? She blinked, but the figure was gone. The hair on her arms prickled. She set her groceries down hurriedly and went to check. The corridor lay empty, silent except for an occasional drip from the old roof. Perhaps her mind played tricks. Returning to her room, Jade found the door slightly ajar, though she was sure she'd locked it. She stepped inside, scanning. The groceries rustled in her arms. Everything looked normal, yet her heart hammered. Was someone messing around, or was the lock faulty? She considered telling Ms. Thursday, but didn't want to bother her with petty concerns. Instead, Jade triple-checked the lock and set about cooking dinner. She ate quietly, swirling uneasy thoughts. Is there a kid sneaking around? Or maybe it's the neighbor's child. Late that night, Jade perched in bed reading on her phone, determined to remain awake. She wanted to see if any footsteps or laughter reoccurred. For a time, nothing happened. Then around midnight, a subtle scraping noise came from behind the wall near the headboard. Jade's pulse quickened. She pressed her ear to the wood. The scraping paused, replaced by a faint childish giggle, like some child found a hidden passage and was teasing her from inside the walls. She jerked back, heart pounding. "Who's there?" she whispered.
Zilengse.
The minutes stretched. Jade eventually laid back, forced her trembling body to calm. She didn't sleep well. The next morning, Jade left early to attend a training session for her new job. The day sped by with introductions, instructions, endless paperwork. She gleaned only that her colleagues seemed nice enough, but she barely had time to talk with them. By evening, Jade yearned to decompress somewhere. Instead of returning directly to that uneasy house, she walked around the district, found a cozy cafe with a warm interior. She sipped an artichoke tea, a local specialty, letting the day's tension melt away. The cafe was small, nearly empty. The barista, seeing Jade alone, started chatting. "You just moved to Dalat?" Jade nodded. The barista inquired about her living situation. Jade explained she was staying in a big, older house near the alley, describing the location. The barista's expression shifted. "You mean that old place near the slope? I've heard stories. Not sure if it's the same house, though." Jade's curiosity piqued. "Stories about?" The barista looked uncomfortable. "Well, rumor says a family used to own that place. They had a young child who... something tragic happened. People claim the child's spirit never left. Some tenants experience odd happenings. But maybe that's just hearsay." A chill rippled through Jade. It matched the hints from Ms. Thursday and that child's blanket she glimpsed. "Thank you for telling me," Jade said. She tried to keep her voice steady. She told herself not to fall prey to superstitions. Yet deep down, she suspected the barista's rumor might be disturbingly true. "I'll keep that in mind." Leaving the cafe, Jade walked home under the faint glow of street lamps. A rising moon illuminated the swirling mist that made Dalat so hauntingly beautiful. She braced herself to re-enter that old house. In the corridor, everything was still. She made it to her room without incident, but her nerves remained on edge. That night, exhaustion overcame Jade. She drifted into sleep more easily than before, phone in hand. Sometime past midnight, she dreamt vividly. She stood in a dimly lit hallway, similar to the one outside her room, but older, walls cracked. A small boy with wide eyes peered up at her from the shadows. He wore pajamas, too short at the ankles, his face expressionless. She heard the dripping of water. The boy lifted a hand, beckoning her forward, then turned and walked. Jade followed, heart pounding, as if compelled by an unseen force. He led her to a closed door. Outside it, an odor of damp mold. The boy whispered, "This used to be my home." Then the door swung open on its own, revealing a dusty playroom. A stuffed toy lay in the corner. A broken child's chair rocked slowly, though no one touched it. Jade wanted to back away, but she stepped in. Suddenly the boy turned, his face contorting with sorrow. "Why won't they let me in?" he murmured. "I'm so cold." Thunder boomed, and Jade jolted awake, heart hammering. She was alone in her bed, sweaty despite the chill. The window rattled from the storm outside. The old floor squeaked as if someone had just run across it. Jade's mind reeled, uncertain if she'd heard real footsteps or dreamt them. For the rest of the night, she lay sleepless, the child's voice echoing in her memory. Determined to find some answers, Jade decided to approach Ms. Thursday more directly. She planned to reveal what she'd experienced, the glimpses of a child figure, the eerie giggles, the dream. But after finishing work that day, she discovered a note slipped under her door. It read, in a hasty scrawl, "Don't dig too deep about the child. Some things are better left alone. A friend." Jade's skin prickled. It wasn't Ms. Thursday's handwriting, nor did it look like a typed message. Did one of the other tenants leave it? Jade realized she'd hardly seen or met these other renters. They seemed absent or reclusive. This cryptic note only heightened her alarm. Why the secrecy? That evening, Jade found Ms. Thursday outside, watering potted plants. Jade confronted her politely but firmly. "I've heard rumors about a tragedy in this house regarding a child. Is it true something happened here?" Ms. Thursday's face went rigid. Her knuckles whitened around the watering can. "People talk nonsense," she said flatly. "It's an old house. Old houses have stories. But no child died here. I must finish my chores." With that, Ms. Thursday marched inside, effectively ending the conversation. Jade sighed, feeling a swirl of frustration. The landlady's dismissive response left her more convinced than ever that something was indeed amiss. Perhaps Ms. Thursday was deliberately concealing the truth. Fate intervened the following afternoon. Jade returned from a quick supermarket trip, trudging up the alley with a bag of groceries. Near the gate, an elderly neighbor, Mr. Kwong, sat on a small stool sipping tea. He nodded politely, introducing himself. Jade recognized this as a chance to glean local knowledge. "Uncle Kwong," Jade asked hesitantly, "do you know anything about the house next door, where I rent?" His eyes flickered. Setting down his teacup, he lowered his voice. "You must be the new tenant. My condolences." "Condolences? Why?" Jade frowned. "Has something terrible happened?" Mr. Kwong exhaled deeply. "It's been many years, but I recall that house's previous owners, a couple with a young son, maybe 6 or 7. The mother fell ill, father left to find work, and the child often was home alone. One stormy night, the boy wandered outside. They found him drowned in a pool of water at the back courtyard. People said his spirit never moved on. Landlords come and go, but stories remain." Jade's breath caught. "That's horrifying. So the rumors are real." The old man nodded gravely. "I'm not one for ghost tales, but many who've stayed their claim to hear childlike footsteps, sobs, or see a small shape in the hall. Some renters left quickly. My guess is that boy's soul can't rest. Perhaps his family never performed a proper ceremony for him." Goosebumps prickled along Jade's arms. This validated the barista's rumor and explained Ms. Thursday's reticence. Jade's mind spun. She thanked Mr. Kwong for sharing. "But what can be done?" she wondered aloud. He shook his head. "I don't know. If you want peace, you might need to help that spirit find closure." That night, Jade scoured the internet for stories of child ghosts, restless spirits, ways to appease them. She found a labyrinth of folklore, from leaving candies to chanting prayers, from seeking spiritual mediums to performing elaborate Buddhist ceremonies. Could any of it help? Sleep eluded her, so she brewed strong tea and forced herself to keep reading. The next day was a Saturday, no work, so she had time. If a restless child's ghost was indeed bound to this house, Jade reasoned that ignoring it wouldn't solve anything. She might attempt a small offering or prayer, but she had no real experience with such matters. At dawn, she visited a local temple known for compassionate nuns, who sometimes guided individuals with minor spiritual concerns. The nuns were kind but cautious. One advised Jade, sometimes a spirit only needs acknowledgement. Light a candle, speak gently to the child, affirm he can be at peace. But they also warned that if the spirit was consumed by sorrow or resentment, appeasing it might be more challenging. Leaving the temple, Jade carried a few small items she bought at a market stall: a plush teddy bear, some sweet biscuits, and a simple child-friendly blanket. She intended to place them in her room, a tiny shrine of sorts, hoping to convey good intentions. She knew it sounded crazy, but she was out of logical options. That evening, Jade arranged the items on a small corner table: the teddy bear, the biscuits in a small dish, and a single candle. She sat cross-legged on the floor, feeling self-conscious. Then softly, she spoke into the hush. "Little one, I'm not here to harm you. If you're lonely, I want you to feel comfort. These toys are for you. If you can hear me, please rest. You deserve peace." Her voice trembled with sincerity. She lit the candle, letting the gentle flicker illuminate the corner. For several moments, the air felt unnaturally still. Then Jade heard a faint rustle, as though a breeze passed through, yet the window was closed. The candle's flame wavered, but didn't go out. The hush was profound. After about 10 minutes, Jade exhaled slowly, extinguished the candle, and prepared for bed. She left the items in place. Perhaps it was silly, but a quiet resolve filled her. She had tried, at least. The night that followed was unusual. Jade slept deeply, undisturbed. No giggles, no shadows, no chilling presence. The next morning, Jade woke feeling rested for the first time in weeks. Rays of sunlight peeked around her curtain. She checked the corner table. The teddy bear was exactly as she'd left it, biscuits untouched, candle and matches neatly placed. Yet the atmosphere in the room felt lighter, as if a subtle gloom had lifted. She ventured into the corridor, half expecting to see the small silhouette scurrying about. Instead, she found only the usual squeaky floor. Ms. Thursday was nowhere around. Jade made coffee, mind whirling with cautious optimism. Maybe her small offering had soothed the ghost's sorrow. Her phone buzzed with a text from a coworker, asking if she wanted to join a group outing for lunch. Jade hesitated. She wanted to stay and see if anything else occurred. But logic told her it was wise to get out, live normally. She replied yes. Still, A fleeting pang made her linger by the corner table. She ran a finger over the teddy bear's soft fur. "I'll be back later," she said gently, feeling odd talking to an empty room. She left, praying that she might return to the same calm. That evening, returning from dinner, Jade found the house eerily quiet. A single lamp glowed in the foyer. She couldn't see Ms. Thursday around. Possibly the landlady was asleep or out. Jade climbed to her third floor, passing the gloom of the second-floor hallway. She paused in front of that half-open door from earlier, the one with the child's blanket. Now it was shut tight. She frowned but continued upward. Stepping into her room, she immediately noticed something amiss. The candle was lit, although she was certain she'd left it unlit. The small dish of biscuits was overturned, crumbs scattered on the floor. A mild unease prickled along her spine. Yet no sign of forced entry. Could Miss Thursday have come in for some reason?
Walking closer, Jade pauset.
Faint footprints in the dust on the floor. Tiny footprints, as if from a child. They led from the table to the door, then disappeared. She knelt, heart hammering, to examine them. They seemed too small for an adult. Her pulse raced with conflicting emotions: fear, curiosity, sorrow. The presence was real. But what had changed that it messed with the offering? She gently put the dish upright, swept the crumbs. Then, uncertain, she snuffed out the candle. At bedtime, Jade lay wide awake, listening for any movement. Past midnight, she dozed off, only to be awoken by a muffled sound, like a child whimpering. She sat up, straining her ears. The whimper was close, as if from her own corner or just behind the walls. She flicked on the lamp, found nothing. Gathering courage, she called softly, "Are you okay?" The whimper faded. Jade's heart ached. She recalled Mr. Kwong's mention that the boy drowned in a stormy night, alone. Perhaps he had been longing for his mother's comfort. Jade waited, but silence settled again. Eventually, she slept, tears moistening her cheeks for reasons she couldn't articulate. The following day, Jade overheard Ms. Thursday talking to someone on the phone in the foyer. The landlady's tense whisper drifted up the stairs. "Yes, another tenant. No, I haven't told her. She's tried offerings. I can't let her stir up trouble. I'll handle it." Jade's stomach twisted. So Ms. Thursday knew Jade was attempting to appease the child ghost, and she disapproved. Jade retreated quickly to avoid confrontation. She decided enough was enough. She deserved the truth. She'd confront Ms. Thursday openly. That evening, Jade approached Ms. Thursday in the small house's sitting area. She steeled herself. "Ms. Thursday, I know about the child who died here. I can't ignore the spirit. Strange things keep happening in my room. Please, I just want your honesty. I'm not looking to cause problems." Ms. Thursday's face tightened. For a moment, she looked both frightened and resentful. Then with a shaky sigh, she sank into a chair. Yes, there was a boy. The previous owners lost him to a drowning accident out back. This house was sold multiple times after that. Some tenants complained of sightings or noises, always around the top floor. She paused, eyes glimmering with tears she tried to hold back. "I just wanted to rent out the rooms in peace. I don't want to drive people away with ghost stories." Jade nodded sympathetically. "I understand you rely on this for income, but the child's spirit seems lonely. I want to help, not complicate things." Ms. Thursday stared at her a long moment, then lowered her gaze. "If you help, be careful. Some have tried, but the child's sorrow runs deep. I can't do it alone. Perhaps you can." She rose abruptly, exiting without another word. Though unsettled by the tension, Jade felt a surge of determination. She resolved to proceed with compassion. She thought of the temple's advice about letting the child's soul find comfort. That night, Jade expanded her offering. She placed not just the teddy bear and biscuits, but also a small cup of warm milk and a bright child-friendly drawing she scribbled: a sun, a smiling face. She lit 2 candles. Sitting cross-legged, she softly spoke as though addressing a real child. "You can come here anytime you want. I'm sorry for what happened to you. I don't know your name, but I know you're scared. You're welcome to share my space. But please rest. I'll try to help you find peace." Her voice wavered. She had no formal ceremony, but sincerity welled in her. For a few moments, she thought she saw a faint flicker near the edges of her vision. The air felt electrically charged. The candle's flames danced higher, or so it appeared. Jade sat quiet, heart thudding. Then, a gentle brush of cold air grazed her shoulder. She didn't leap away, just breathed. The sense of presence hovered. She closed her eyes and repeated that he was free to accept her kindness, that she wouldn't harm him. Eventually, the chill subsided, and Jade cautiously exhaled. Having made the second offering, Jade expected calmer nights. For 2 days, indeed, nothing disruptive occurred. She even thought she glimpsed a small shape in her peripheral vision, never threatening, just watchful. She wondered if the child ghost was learning to trust her. But on the third night, everything unraveled. At around 2 a.m., Jade jerked awake to a blood-curdling scream echoing from the corridor. Her heart leaped to her throat. She sprang out of bed, fumbled for the lamp. The corridor was pitch black. Another scream tore through the silence, a woman's voice. Jade flung the door open to see Miss Thursday at the end of the hall, pressed against the wall, face contorted in terror. "What's wrong?" Jade cried, rushing forward. Ms. Thursday pointed shakily at the second-floor landing. There was a child, standing there soaked in water. His face, "Oh God," she collapsed, sobbing. Jade's entire body trembled. She slid an arm around Ms. Thursday, scanning the gloom for any sign of a figure. Nothing. The air smelled faintly of damp. Slowly, Jade coaxed Ms. Thursday back to the ground floor parlor. Once calmer, Ms. Thursday recounted. She'd gone upstairs hearing noises, saw a small boy dripping water, his hair plastered to his scalp. He locked eyes with her, expression sorrowful, then gave a heart-wrenching wail, making Ms. Thursday scream in terror. Jade's mind reeled. Why would the ghost appear so horrifying tonight, after she tried to show kindness? Ms. Thursday sobbed that the boy had parted his lips as though trying to speak, but only water spilled out. Jade rubbed Ms. Thursday's back, feeling both pity and dread. They spent the rest of the night in the parlor, lights blazing, neither sleeping. Outside, the wind battered the old shutters, as if a storm brewed in the spirit realm as well. Enough was enough. In the morning, Jade insisted they consult someone knowledgeable in the region's spiritual matters. Ms. Thursday, though reluctant, finally gave Jade the name of an older Buddhist monk who lived in a small monastery on the outskirts of Dalat. They set out by taxi, passing pine forests until they reached a modest temple with a red-tiled roof. The monk, Venerable Tik Phapan, received them graciously. Ms. Thursday explained the haunting in halting phrases, while Jade described the child's sightings and sorrowful presence. The monk listened quietly, eyes reflecting compassion. Then he softly spoke. A child's spirit dwelling in unrest is a heavy matter. Possibly he died in fear or longing. You say he drowned. If no family performed a proper farewell, that soul can remain lost in the cycle. You have shown kindness in your offerings, but the child's grief may be deep. He advised them to create a small, respectful ceremony, inviting the child's spirit to release attachments. We can perform a dedication of merits at the temple, he said. But you must also do your part at the house, to let him know he is free from condemnation, that he can find the path to rebirth. But what if we fail? He seems angry. Venerable Tik Phapan reassured her, anger can emerge from hurt. Compassion is key. Let him see the path of light. If the family who once owned the house is unavailable to do so, you stand in their stead. Jade found hope in his calm. They arranged a date, 2 nights from now, for a short chanting ritual in Ms. Thursday's house. The monk promised to come with an assistant, bringing special incense and chanting scripts. Jade felt her chest lighten somewhat. During the interim days, Jade and Ms. Thursday prepared. The landlady, though still shaky from her corridor encounter, cooperated wholeheartedly. They cleaned the second-floor landing, set up a small table with fresh flowers, fruit offerings, some sweets, and a child's toy car Ms. Thursday found. Jade contributed the teddy bear and blanket from her own corner. They also planned to leave a small basin of water, symbolizing cleansing. Word got around to the 2 other tenants, rarely home though they were. One told Jade they had heard footsteps at odd hours, but never saw the child. Another said they would avoid the property that night. Jade understood. Some people preferred not to witness spiritual ceremonies. Attention charged the atmosphere as the evening approached. Jade prayed silently for the child's soul to find peace. She also worried about what might happen if the spirit resisted. She recalled the terrifying image Ms. Thursday described. Dripping water, sorrowful eyes. The thought gave Jade chills. But determined not to falter, she repeated the monk's advice. Lead with compassion. Finally, the appointed evening arrived. The skies threatened drizzle, as if Dalat itself braced for something significant. Ms. Thursday switched off most household lights, letting only soft lamps glow near the improvised altar. The door to the outside yard remained open, to invite the spirit's free movement. Around 8 p.m., Venerable Tik Phap arrived with a younger monk assistant. They carried a small set of Buddhist texts, a singing bowl, and a few sticks of incense whose fragrance quickly filled the air with a calming presence. Jade, Ms. Thursday, and the two monks gathered near the second-floor landing. The rest of the house was silent as a tomb. The monk placed the singing bowl on the small table, lit incense, and began a low chant. The assistant accompanied him, creating a rhythmic hum that reverberated through the corridor. Jade stood by, hands clasped, trying to still her trembling nerves. Ms. Thursday occasionally dabbed at her brow with a handkerchief, expression taut. As the chanting continued, a strange hush enveloped the house. The air seemed to vibrate with intangible energy. Then, faint footsteps. Jade swallowed hard. She saw no one, yet the footsteps circled around. Ms. Thursday let out a soft gasp. Venerable Tik Phap's voice rose gently. Child, we call upon your spirit. You have wandered in longing. The living here open their hearts to you. Be not afraid. There is a path to peace. Accept this offering, these prayers. Release your suffering. Return to the cycle. Find your rebirth. The assistant struck the singing bowl lightly. A pure note shivered in the gloom. The footsteps paused. For an instant, Jade glimpsed a flicker of movement at the top of the stairs, like a small figure peeking. Her heart pounded. The figure seemed hesitant, translucent. Could this be the watery silhouette Ms. Thursday saw? The chanting persisted, rising and falling. The monk recited lines of dedication. To the restless child of this home, we offer compassion. We request the Bodhisattvas guide you onward. A wind stirred inside the corridor, fluttering the table's offerings. Ms. Thursday let out a breathless sob. Jade's eyes teared up, seeing what looked like a boy's face flicker near the far corner. She tried to stay calm, whispering, "It's okay. You can go." Suddenly, the childlike shape, pallid watery hair, eyes filled with a heartbreaking sadness, came into partial clarity. Ms. Thursday muffled a cry. Jade forced herself to stand tall, meeting those eyes. She offered a shaky smile. The boy's lips parted, as though wanting to speak. The chanting rose in pitch, gently guiding him. Gradually, the figure began to fade. For a heartbeat, the child's expression softened, almost as if grateful. Then he dissolved into the thin air, leaving only silence. The monk's chanting ebbed, replaced by the hush of a house that exhaled relief. Ms. Thursday collapsed into Jade's arms, sobbing quietly. Jade patted her back, eyes stinging with emotion. The ceremony ended as quickly as it began, the final notes of the singing bowl lingering in the corridor's stillness. Exhausted yet relieved, Jade escorted the monks downstairs to the living room. Ms. Thursday thanked them profusely. The monk recommended they leave the offerings untouched for the night, let the incense burn down. If the child's soul has truly accepted release, peace should descend. If you sense further unrest, contact us again, he said gently. After the monks departed, Jade and Ms. Thursday stood together, gazing around the once dreary corridor. The atmosphere felt subtly different. Lighter, more open. Ms. Thursday offered Jade a trembling smile. Thank you for persisting. I always feared confronting it. Maybe now, the poor boy can rest. That night, Jade returned to her room. The memories of the ceremony replayed in her mind. The chanting, the child's sorrowful eyes, the swirl of intangible energies. She half expected more footsteps or laughter. But hours ticked by in peace. She drifted into the deepest sleep she'd had since moving in, unvisited by nightmares or cold presences. Around 4 a.m., she stirred, checking the corner table where her earlier small shrine stood. Everything remained as it was, the new items from the monk's ceremony lying quietly. She felt a wave of relief, whispering a prayer of thanks for the child's release. In the days that followed, the old house settled into a comfortable quiet. No more giggles in the corridor, no glimpses of a small silhouette. Ms. Thursday, for the first time since Jade arrived, wore a relaxed expression. The The tension that once lurked in her posture lifted. She even asked Jade about possibly redecorating the second floor space, maybe turning it into a reading lounge. Jade, busy with her new job, found a newfound affection for the building. One evening, Jade decided to visit Mr. Kwong, the elderly neighbor who'd recounted the tragic drowning. She told him about the ceremony. He smiled, nodding.
I'm glad.
That boy might finally find peace. This house had carried a heavy shadow for years. May it be lifted now. As the weeks went on, Jade's career blossomed in the city. She made friends, discovered local cafes and night markets. The looming sense of dread that once plagued her each time she returned home was gone. She walked the corridor without fear, sometimes pausing to notice the second-floor door with the child's blanket. Ms. Thursday eventually donated the blanket to charity, saying it was time to let go. Months later, Jade prepared to move on from the boarding house. She was relocating to a modern apartment near her workplace. As she packed boxes, her thoughts drifted to the child ghost. She wondered if, in some intangible corner of the spirit realm, he now felt warmth or acceptance. On her last night, Jade lit a small candle near the corner table, reminiscent of her earliest attempts. She spoke softly, unsure if the child's presence lingered or had fully departed. "Little one, I'm leaving tomorrow. I hope you're at peace. Thank you for letting me stay. And I'm sorry for what you suffered." No sudden breezes or flickering shapes answered her. Instead, there was a gentle hush that felt almost comforting. She smiled through misty eyes, blowing out the candle. The next day, Jade carried her bags downstairs. Ms. Thursday shook her hand, expressing gratitude for her patience with the house's quirks. Jade said she was thankful for the experience. Indeed, it had taught her empathy and courage in the face of the unknown. As Jade stepped out into the crisp that morning, she caught a final glimpse up at the third-floor window. The faint reflection of a child's face, or perhaps just the reflection of the sky. Hard to tell. She paused, heart full of quiet acceptance. Then she turned away. In the hush of that old boarding house, the city's morning bustle began. And though Jade left, the memory of a small boy's laughter, both sorrowful and sweet, remained as a gentle echo in the corridors. The once restless child had found rest. And Jade carried forward, braver for having faced the intangible and chosen compassion over fear.